friends.
Good morning.
Good morning. If we all seem a little bit rattled and scattered this morning, it's because two pillars of our church are not here this morning. Our president, Annette Brown, who is also the lady you see working in the kitchen all the time, and Ron Lerch, the church secretary, who also plays the organ. Let's send both of them a lot of love and healing. We miss them very much. And thank goodness for all the other wonderful members who not only get here to do their own job, but who fill in as well. We really appreciate it. I want to start out, of course, by acknowledging that today is Veterans Day, a very important day that sometimes gets a little bit lost in all the commotion going on around our country and our world. So that's why we have the Missing Man's Table this morning, actually a missing comrade, because we know there are men and women in our military. And it's a very symbolic table to show our remembrance. It's my understanding that this was really brought forward by the POW organizations after the Vietnam War, but in my opinion it's certainly appropriate for all of our wars. You see, the table is set for only one, and that signifies the loneliness of someone who may be a prisoner of war, usually kept very isolated, and the table is round because it shows that we're never going to forget them. Our love and our concern, our support is never ending. The white tablecloth, and I'm trying not to get emotional, this is very important to me. The white tablecloth indicates the purity of the intentions of those who do go to serve our country. You know, there are very few men or women who say, oh boy, I want to go to war. And yet they do, because they once upon a time were called to, nowadays because they just feel it's the right thing to do. Trying to keep not only us safe, but wherever they go in other nations, trying to protect helpless people from those who do have weapons, who do strive to control. Now, seeing our church with so many people this morning, to me is such a blessing, because there are not a lot of countries that allow people to worship as they want to. And God bless our pilgrims, isn't that why they came over? Looking for that freedom of religion, to worship their God, their way. And we sometimes take that for granted, as we do so many of the freedoms that we have in this country. We just take it for granted, often not thinking about, not recognizing all the people who did so much and gave so much for us to have these abilities and these freedoms. There is a lemon on the table as well, and that signifies the bitter fate of those who are missing, those who may very well not ever come home. And the salt signifies the tears, not only of those who perhaps are away from home, knowing they will not be able to return, but all the families. And I have to say, we may have only had 2 veterans here today, but looking around, I know many of you, myself included, who had fathers or husbands or sons or daughters, I don't mean to disregard the ladies, in one war or another. And even if our loved one didn't have to go to war, There's always that potential that they may. I believe in supporting those who serve our government, whether it's in the military, today especially the military, but those who are in office. Now I know it's been an ugly, lengthy, still ongoing political process. But you know, aren't we fortunate that we have the ability to speak our mind and to vote the way we personally feel is best and right? And sometimes we get so caught up in the negativity and the mud being slung that we forget that these individuals really do sincerely think they will do the best job. The red ribbon answers the call. It indicates that the love of country was so important to these individuals. And the red rose symbolizes the blood that may have been shed. The glass is upside down because that individual is not here to partake. You know, once upon a time, lastly, there used to be a Bible on the table. Now we recognize men and women of all faiths are also in our military, are also serving our country. So I kind of like to consider that candle the beacon of light that each carries in their heart for the God of their understanding. You know, our national organization has a social policies pamphlet, and this will tell you how our parent body has put out the parameters of our religious beliefs. Just like anything else, we are individuals. We live in the home of the free, but this is the overall understanding. How does our National Spiritualist organization and most of our churches and members, how do we feel about war? We abhor war in any form and supports any and every effort put forth by any nation or group to maintain peace in the world. However, we do support our nation's young men and women who serve in the armed forces. They may not support, and we do not support, war itself as a method of resolving disputes and differences. Wars at any stage of human progress are brutal and morally injurious to the welfare of society. And, ideally, all international disputes should be settled by boards of arbitration, thus ushering in the era of universal peace on earth, goodwill to men and women. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Can we just even try to imagine a world of peace? We can't even have it here in our country. We have lost respect for one another. The name-calling, the mudslinging. I've said it for years. I think we need to sign petitions. Let's make it against the law for any politician to talk badly about anyone else. You know, I tell Ron, it's like those signs you see, especially up more north, where there will be a sign that says, bridge ices before road. Don't tell me that, do something about it. And this is the way I feel about politics. Don't tell me how rotten that individual is. Tell me how good you are and what you want to do for others. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? That's one of my dreams. I know that our government, from the very highest to the more mundane, is dependent upon majority. I found that out when I was on our national board. I went in all starry-eyed and optimistic and just knowing and hoping and praying that I would make a difference. And then reality smacked me. That maybe I didn't know it all. And maybe, although in my heart I thought something was a great idea, others not so much. But we didn't stand in the boardroom or sit in the boardroom and throw things at one another. We don't do that at convention. If tempers start getting high because people feel so strongly about an issue and these people are just getting worked up and these people are getting equally worked up, you know what we do? Someone will stand, approach the microphone, be recognized by the president, and call for a few minutes of meditation and prayer. Just soothes everyone down. It's like our healing service. No matter what's gone on before we get here, you can come in, hear a beautiful healing meditation, soft music, everyone is concentrating on healing, and gosh, don't you feel better? That's what it's all about. And as spiritualists, it really is up to us to be this light of inspiration, this light of peace and calm to others. We don't have to beat anybody up and tell them it's my way or the highway. We can actually listen. Gosh, we might even learn something. And if you don't agree, that's okay. Thanks to our wonderful men and women in the service, our law enforcement, our emergency trainers, we are allowed to disagree. But please do so with respect. Goes back to the golden rule. Just treat others the way you want to be treated. It's not that hard. It really isn't. I was in the podiatrist office this week, and it was amazing to me how many people were in wheelchairs, on canes, big boots. Obviously they had had severe injury. And of course it's in a medical office building, so by law they have to have these fire doors, which weigh a ton. And here's some poor soul that's already on crutches or a cane or a walker or a wheelchair. It did my heart good. How many people jumped up to say, let me get that? How hard is that? How hard is that to get our nose out of our cell phone and recognize people around us and do whatever we can, little things, to make their life just a smidgen easier? It's not hard. And I know none of us are heartless. I know that. But we do get so distracted. We do get so caught up in ourselves or in the latest email or the latest text. Put it down. Look around you. See the beauty of nature that God provided us. See the beauty in the diversity of other people. Give thanks at this time of Thanksgiving for everything that you have. Give thanks for the people around you, because we all prop up one another, don't we? It's a shame sometimes we kind of wait until a problem becomes known to us. Many people don't talk about their personal challenges. They keep things very private. So when you give someone a smile or a hug, you don't know what that might mean to that individual. You don't know. It's a powerful, powerful thing to remember. Now, to lighten things up just a bit, there was a very large wedding that was about to take place. The bride and groom had come forward after all the other people in the wedding party, and the minister had greeted everyone there. And then they came to that part in the service. Did anyone have anything to say regarding the union of this young man and young woman? And of course, everybody kind of tenses up. It's just typical. And a young woman at the very back of the sanctuary stood up, and she was carrying an infant. And the minister thought, uh-oh. But he beckoned her to come forward. And she did, a little bit slowly because she had this baby. And of course, everybody was nudging one another. Well, the bride was nearly in tears. The groom was just looking totally bewildered. Finally, she got up closer to the minister, and he said, "Did you have something you needed to say regarding the union of this man and this woman?" You could have heard a pin drop. And she said, "Yes. Speak louder. We can't hear you in the back." Now, you know, everybody in that church was thinking something a little more negative. As apparently was the bride, the groom, and the minister. Try to keep that image in your mind and in your heart. We jump to conclusions so quickly. We assume so often, so frequently. It's a silly story, but hopefully it will help us remember. Don't rush to judgment. Don't judge anyone by how they dress, or their vocabulary, or what they do for a living, or if they have a job. Judge them, if you must, as an equal, because we are all children of God. Every single one of us has that spark of God within. And yes, sometimes people can be a little aggravating. Sometimes their actions can be frustrating, can be hurtful. But way down deep in there somewhere is that spark of our Creator. And when we join our spark with theirs, it makes a beautiful light. Thank you.